SCP-6013. When you enter the site where the SCP lies, what you'll see is the body of like a marine mammal covered in all kinds of strange corals. We'll come back to it later, but it's important to note. Through investigating this creature, most ways of doing so didn't really work. However, what did work was a LiDAR scan of its insides, which kind of revealed multiple different rooms. And tests from its biomass also indicates that it's quite old, speculating to be around 3,000 years old. So when I read it, I was thinking immediately like, maybe this is like a remnants from the like Sarkic Wars or something, you know? But the most peculiar thing about these LiDAR scans reveal that there is a chamber that kind of looks like what you would call on a boat, a bridge, essentially. It's where you kind of control the creature. Which is a bit strange, because it does hint that this Leviathan might actually be like an operational vehicle, like a boat. The interior of this SCP also measured a temperature of 41 degrees Celsius, as well as a humidity reaching 100%, creating kind of like this weird environment. And one of the effects of this weird environment is that metals and plastics deteriorate, making surveying of this SCP incredibly difficult. So a suit that is designed for making you able to investigate SCPs for weeks at a time in well, let's say aquatic environment at least, is nearly unusable. Now, this is where things get really interesting. So prolonged exposure, which in this case is like 2 minutes, in this environment increases spontaneously and to an extreme degree genomic reconstruction. Yes, you're being altered by just being in this environment. In some ways, you can kind of look upon it as extremely Sarkic. Like this thing will change you. Like that. It also does a couple other things, and I can never say this word because I am Norwegian, I think, maybe that's why. There's also thermatological contamination. Not really sure, when I read it, I wasn't really sure what that meant. I think it's like some anomalous properties that changes you essentially. And but not least, introjective cognition, which I believe is like a change of self-perception, essentially. Look, like, I'll be honest, I didn't know what introjective meant, so I looked it up, and apparently it's a psychological term that refers to like a self-experience, these kinds of things. So it seems to be changing that. So in essence, it changes who you are fundamentally just being around in this environment. And the rest of this marine mammal seems to nearly be made like a warship, which is super cool. But it also means that what was alluded to in the beginning, that this is indeed like a vehicle that you can operate. Now, the real interesting question is, of course, what does this vehicle do? This is where things become a little bit scary with this SCP. You see, one of the compartments is a chamber filled with a type of biomass. And upon further testing of this biomass, it's filled with pathogens, viruses, bacteria, all Sarkic in nature. And now let's take it from terrifying to a horror movie. They're also linked to a network of tubes. And these tubes go far beneath the sea floor, up through the continent, and all the way over to like aquifers in Europe. I had to learn this too. An aquifer is essentially like a ground pool of water. It's water underground that we often utilize as a source of drinking water. So this far into the SCP file, we're starting to see that it's clearly like rather dangerous. Although it's constructed as a warship, it seemingly seems to be more about the capability of like pretty much do major damage to the European societies. To my surprise, I did discover this SCP is sentient with roughly about a human level of intelligence, which is pretty cool, and you can converse with it. It's a little bit difficult apparently to converse with this SCP because it utilizes a lot of different ways of communicating that aren't really familiar in today's society, but they are able to speak in a weird language, Sonsadan. or gut speak, apparently. And I checked it out a little bit on the SCP files. Apparently it's kind of like a, not Russian, but it's like an old Russian dialect, so to speak, that seems to derive some similarities from. I believe on the SCP files, they have like an entire section about it. So, you know, if you want to learn gut speak, you know, you can, just saying. And so this is essentially the SCP itself. It's pretty clear that it's a warship. It has some capabilities of spreading pathogens. It seems to be able to be controlled, which actually kind of brings us to the second part of the article, which is SCP-6013-A and -B. You know the environment we talked about and how dangerous it is and how it can affect the body. Well, it turns out that one individual named Hannah, I believe, if I remember correctly, did indeed get exposed to this for longer than 2 minutes, and something rather strange happened. So first and foremost, she internally had a major reconstruction. From the outside, you can't really tell. Not only that, but for some reason, the site director is very avid that this is not Hannah. Hannah is dead. Whatever this is, it's not Hannah. Even though it does seem to have Hannah's memories, and it's not like Hannah died and the body got resurrected, it seems to just be in contact with this. Although it is acting a little bit strangely, asking for things, doing certain things, that seems to indicate that she wants to perhaps leave this place. But she also got some other abilities, like she's able to communicate with the psychic creature. It's nearly, I wouldn't say like they're one, but it's kind of like they're integrated in some sense. Not only that, but she doesn't eat, which is strange. I mean, it doesn't say in the article, but I would presume nearly that she gets her sustenance from the SCP itself. Who also, by the way, which I forgot to mention, of course, the SCP also itself seems to be feeding off the sea floor with the tubes. So not all the tubes go all the way to Europe and is like ready to like mumbo jumbo, but some of it's like dragging up minerals from the sea floor and it lives on that. Now there's also a -B, and as I mentioned in the beginning, the surrounding environment of the SCP-6013 is like a coral reef. It turns out that this spontaneous genetic changes that happens with people within this environment also proceeds outside the SCP, leading to some phenomenally strange creatures. Now, the first thing I thought, it was like, okay, that's like the biggest hazard in the entire universe. What are you talking about? They live in the ocean, they are continuously like changing, they're psychic in nature, and they can just leave, right? Wrong. It turns out that they are like attracted to this SCP and they don't leave. They're kind of like self-contaminated, these creatures. There's a list, like a laundry list of all these like different types of creatures and things that you find there. There's like creatures that lives for only like a couple of hours and then they die and they like have to reproduce. And then there's other creatures that are literally like 1,000 years old. So they have like this incredible biodiversity that is probably unmatched by anything in the entire SCP universe, at least as far as I know, which is really cool. On SCP Wiki itself, there's way more about this SCP. This is just like a surface level, like a brief explanation of this SCP that I thought I would share, because I don't think most people have ever heard of this. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, comment down below if there's any SCPs you would want me to cover. Alright, peace.